Hello, this video is for the Chapter 9 Technology Project and Part 3 this time. So let's go ahead and scroll down and have a look at that. This one's going to use the application hypothesis test sim for means located in the StatSims folder, so make sure you get that out. It says we're going to look at a soda company that claims to have an average of 12 ounces in their cans. Just to make my answers a little different than yours, I'm going to look at a soup company that claims to have an average of 19 ounces in their cans. And it says their filling machine has a standard deviation of 0.23. I'm going to use 0.53 for my soup company. And they routinely perform a hypothesis test to see if the true average is different than the 12, or in my case the 19. And we want to investigate the power of their tests, which is a term we've never heard before, so that's going to be defined down here. Assume the test is going to be done at the 5% significance level. I'll stick with that, and we're going to also use 40 cans in my example. So they said we were going to look at the power of the test. So what is that? The power of a hypothesis test is defined as the probability that the hypothesis test will reject a false claim. So power only applies to false claims. Unlike our last claim up above where we had a true claim, this one is going to be a false one. We'll see that in a moment, and so the idea of power will apply. Alright, so let's write out steps 1 and 2 for the hypothesis test requested in the problem. So if I switch over to my report, you see I've set HO as mu equals 19, and then because we are checking to see, where did they say it? If it's different than the 12 ounces, that would make it a two-tailed test, so I did a does not equal to 19 in H1. They said we wanted a 5% significance level, so I have alpha equal to 0.05. Alright, so then they want us to start filling that stuff in, put our name in the text box, and then let's see if I can remember a couple things, fill them in. We'll go back and forth here a little bit. So we want to fill in the claimed mean, so that would be the one from HO, so that's going to be 19 for me, 12 for you. And the type of test and the significance level, that's all I can probably keep track of for now. So the claim mean would be for me 19. The type of test, they said different, so that would be two-tailed, and the significance level is 5%. And I can remember some other stuff too. I believe the sample size was 40. And then they want us to fill in the standard deviation as well. And just looking at that real quick. So yours is a standard deviation of 0.23. Just to make my different example work out okay, I'm going to use a standard deviation of 0.53, but you need to make sure you put what they were asking you to. Alright, I think that's everything on this. Let me just double check that I didn't forget anything. We got the claim mean, type of test, significance level, sample size, standard deviation. I did forget a piece. They want us to set the population type to left skewed, so I will do that. Let me pull up the StatSim, and I actually already have that set. So you have the pull down menu here. Just make sure you select the one they asked you to. Now it turns out that's not going to make much of a difference to us, and we'll see why in Part C. When they say to comment on the requirements, we want to think about the fact that this is a test of a mean, and then because our sample size is 40, which is over 30, X bar is going to be normally distributed regardless of the distribution of the population, so it actually doesn't matter that our population is right skewed. Because of this big sample size, X bar will be normal anyways, so we can say confidently, not with any hope, but just with confidence, that the requirements have been met in this. And make sure you write all that out. ... is not going to get it done. Alright, let's see what they want us to do in Part D and E. So suppose the machine is actually underfilling the cans by 0.05 ounces. So I'm going to do 0.15 just to make it a little different. So suppose it's underfilling by 0.15. Alright, so it's supposed to be 19. So if it was underfilling by 0.15, then that would be the 19 it was supposed to be. Underfilled by 0.15 would be 18.85 ounces would be the truth. And the key there is that the claimed mean of 19 is different than the true mean, which makes HO a false claim. And unlike our last problem where the significance level and the probability of rejecting matched, here they don't, because this one is a false claim. And if the claim is false, it would be a correct decision to reject it, and the probability that we'll reject this false claim is the power. So this is the power of our hypothesis test right here, this probability of rejecting. There's no need to run it. Sometimes people do the run, and I'm going to go ahead and start doing that and then just pause. And they'll look at this percent that you actually rejected. That's in a way just like a sample. So this is just an approximation of the power. So you don't want to do that. You want to go with this number right here, which is the actual power. So let me go back to the directions again. So let's see what they want us to do. Suppose it's underfilled by 0.05 for me. I'm going to do the 0.15, right? Enter the true mean, and then enter 1,000 for the number of trials. Click automatic. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that because they're telling us to. So change this to 1,000. I've got the true mean entered in, and I can click automatic. So again, what you need to keep in mind is the power is the actual probability of rejecting this false claim. This is not the actual probability, it's just an estimate. So they should come out pretty close to each other, but this one is the power, this number is an estimation of the power. And we've got just a few more to go to reach the 1,000, so I'll go ahead and let that finish. And while that finishes up, let's see what we're supposed to do next. Use Alt Print Screen to copy and paste to your report, and you could do that, okay? But if you look at Part E, it says find and circle the power, and if we use snipping tool, it'll be easier to circle the power. So I'm going to do that instead. And if we bring this back up again, the key is, what is power? What is the definition of power? Let's look at it again. The power is defined as the probability that we will reject a false claim. So this is a false claim because the claim value and the true value are different from each other, and the probability we'll reject it is right here. This is our power. This is an estimate of the power. This really is the power. So let's capture this with the snipping tool. So this is an old one. Let me do a new snip. Capture this. And then again, the benefit of using snipping tool is I can go ahead and circle the power right there with the mouse, so that that's going to be already done. I don't have to worry about doing it later. Edit, copy, minimize this, go to my report, and I'll put that in right here with a Control V for paste, and the power has already been circled on that. Okay, and then they just want us to do some hypotheticals, and I'm going to run through those with you real quick. So we're going to pull up the app again, and let's see what the first one is. I guess let's look at it right here. Click the clear button. Suppose the company was only concerned about underfilling the cans. Make the appropriate change and write down the new power. So if they were, so let's click clear, and if they were only concerned about underfilling, they wouldn't do a two-tailed test. They would just be concerned with mu is less than 19, so they would do a left-tailed test. And as I switch this, I want you to watch what happens to the power number. So it was 4326. Now I go to left-tailed, and it's 5576. So that number went up. That's a good thing, because this is a probability of rejecting this false claim. And if you reject a false claim, that's a correct decision. So when this number gets bigger and you're dealing with a false claim, that's a good thing. So this is our new power number. You don't need to do the automatic and run that out, because remember, the number that showed up was only an estimate anyway. So 0.5576 is our new power. So I'll just type that in, and then we can go do the next adjustment. So back to the StatSim, and let's see what it says. Actually, sorry, we'll look at that right here. So further, suppose the company was willing to take up to a 10% risk of making a type 1 error, make the change, and write down the new power. So the risk of making a type 1 error is our significance level. So if they were willing to take a 10% risk, we could change this from 5 to 10, and as I do that, watch what happens to the power number from 5576 to now it's 6943. So if you're willing to take more of a risk of making a type 1 error, you're more likely to catch false claims when you're dealing with them. So it's a trade-off, because this is bad to take a higher risk of a type 1 error, but this is good that you're more likely to catch false claims. So what's the power now? 0.6943, 6943. So I'll type that new power number in, and then we're going to want to do that one more time. So let's see what adjustment they want us to make. Now use trial and error to determine the minimum sample size needed to increase the power to at least 85%, and then write that down or type it in on the printout. So 85% for the power is what we want. And right now, oops, sorry, wrong thing there. Right now our power number is 6943, so we want to get that up to 85% by changing the sample size. Probably a bigger sample size would make this more powerful, so I'm going to try 50. That got us to 76. Let's try 60. That went to 81. Let's try 65. That's 84.13. Now I'm just going to click on this and go up one at a time. 84.55, 84.96, so we're still just barely under 85%. One more click to 68 and now I'm over. So 68 looks like the minimum sample size that makes the power over 85%. And I had power labeled here, but they weren't asking for the power on the last one. They were asking for the sample size, so I believe that was 68. I'm just going to double check real quick. It's looking at the stat sim. And yeah, that was 68. It's going to be different for you because I use some different numbers here doing the soup simulation, but it's going to be the same idea. You could do screen captures if you want and circle those powers, but if you want to save space and just type the power numbers down, that would be fine with me. And again, make sure you fill in the requirements completely. I said what it was, I just didn't type it all in. Alright, so different numbers again, but hopefully a good and useful example for you. So good luck with this as you finish it up.